A young mother once told me she spent 4 months choosing her daughter's name, comparing spellings, checking how it sounded with the last name, reading it out loud in the mirror in the quiet of her bathroom late at night when the house had finally gone still, and she never once asked what it actually meant. Most parents don't. We choose beautiful. We choose unique. We choose the name that felt right in a hospital room at 2 in the morning. Almost nobody asks the one question that actually matters. What is this name going to declare over my child's life every single day for the rest of it? Scripture never treated names as decoration. God renamed Abram to Abraham. He renamed Jacob to Israel. He told Zechariah exactly what to call his son before the boy ever took a breath. Proverbs 22 verse 1 says a good name is more desirable than great riches. Think about that for a second. Riches can be spent, lost, rebuilt. A name follows a person into every room they will ever walk into for the rest of their life. Every classroom, every job interview, every relationship, every hospital bed at the very end of it. You cannot unring that bell once it's chosen. So here are 6 names you should never give your child, and one question worth asking about whichever one you're considering. What does this name actually speak? The first is a name rooted in a false god, chosen purely because it sounded elegant. A couple I know fell in love with a name for exactly that reason. Elegant, uncommon, nothing more. It wasn't until a relative gently asked if they knew what the name originally meant that they discovered it was drawn directly from an ancient deity. They weren't reckless people. They simply never asked. Exodus 23 verse 13 says, "Don't let the names of other gods be heard on your lips." To name is to invoke, to call something into daily use. This isn't about panicking over every unfamiliar name. It's about asking, before you finalize it, where does this actually come from? I want to be practical here for a moment. This doesn't require a theology degree. It requires 10 minutes in a search engine. Type the name in, look past the first pretty definition, and keep scrolling until you find its actual origin. Most names reveal themselves quickly if you're willing to look past the surface. The second is a name that quietly declares a wound instead of a promise. I knew a woman who named her son during the hardest year of her life, and only years later realized the name she'd chosen meant sorrow in her own family's language. She told me, through tears, that she felt like she'd written her private pain on her child's identity without ever meaning to. First Chronicles 4 verse 9 tells us about Jabez, whose name literally meant he causes pain, and Jabez had to pray specifically to break the weight of the name he never chose. If you're naming a child in the middle of a hard season, don't let this season pick their identity. Ask for a name that speaks a promise, not your unhealed wound. I think about that mother often, because what struck me wasn't the name itself. It was how long she carried the guilt of it alone, assuming there was nothing to be done once the birth certificate was signed. There's always something to be done. A name can be spoken over again, prayed over again, even years later. Jabez didn't get a new name. He got a new declaration over the one he already had, and that declaration changed the trajectory of his entire life. The third is a name chosen to build the parent's legacy instead of the child's future. A father I once counseled spoke about his son's name with real pride, but it wasn't pride in the child. It was pride in continuing a family name he wanted remembered. The boy hadn't done anything yet. He was already a monument. Genesis 11 verse 4 records the builders of Babel saying, "Let us make a name for ourselves." One sentence that reveals the entire heart behind that tower. When a name exists to elevate the parent, the child inherits an assignment before they inherit an identity. I've watched this play out over years with that same family. The son grew up polite, accomplished, and quietly exhausted, always performing a legacy that was never actually his to carry. It took him until his late 20s to ask the question his father never had to: what do I actually want my life to say, separate from what my name was already saying for me? If any of these three describe a name you're considering, or one you've already given, stay with me. Comment, "Lord, let this name carry your purpose," before you keep watching, because the next three are the ones almost no one thinks to ask about at all. The fourth is a name pulled entirely from a trending list, with no meaning attached at all. A mother once admitted to me, almost embarrassed, that she'd chosen her daughter's name purely because it sounded good next to the last name, nothing more. Years later, her daughter asked her a simple question she had no real answer for. "Why did you name me this?" Isaiah 43 verse 1 says, "I have summoned you by name. You are mine. God doesn't call his children by trend. He calls them by purpose. You don't need something ancient or unusual. You just need an answer ready for the day your child asks you the same question. That's really the test, isn't it? Not whether the name is old or rare or biblical sounding, but whether you can look your child in the eyes one day and tell them exactly why you chose it and have that answer mean something. The fifth is a name given as a joke, poking fun at something sacred, meant to get a laugh at a party. I heard about a couple who thought it was clever, harmless, the kind of thing that would make people smile when they heard it. What started as a joke followed their child into every classroom, every introduction, every relationship for the rest of their life. A punchline they never agreed to carry. Exodus 20 verse 7 says, "Don't misuse the name of the Lord your God." And that principle extends further than we usually apply it. A child's name should never be the joke. It should be the blessing. I think about that child sometimes, now grown, still introducing themselves at every new job, every new friendship, watching the same flicker of amusement cross a stranger's face before they've even had the chance to say anything else about who they actually are. A joke that lands once at a dinner party lands 1,000 more times over a lifetime, and only one of those people is still laughing by the end. The sixth, and this might matter more than the first five combined, is a name chosen without ever once being prayed over. Of everything on this list, this is the step most parents skip entirely. Luke 1 verse 13 records an angel telling Zechariah his prayer had been heard, and that his son would be named John, not chosen at a family gathering, not picked from a book, but given directly in response to prayer before the child was even born. You don't need an angel to appear in your bedroom for this to apply to you. You just need to pause before the decision is final and ask, Lord, is this the name you have for my child? I've sat with more parents than I can count who spent hours comparing name meanings on their phones, cross-referencing popularity charts, texting family members for opinions, and never once stopped to simply ask God directly. Not because they didn't believe he'd answer, because it never occurred to them that this was even a question worth bringing to him. I want to say something clearly before we close, because I don't want this to become something it was never meant to be. If you've already named your child something on this list, without knowing its weight, this isn't a verdict on you or on them. God redeemed Jacob. He redeemed Abram. He can redeem a name the same way. Your prayers over your child's life carry more weight than the name on their birth certificate ever will. But if the name isn't written down yet, take this seriously, because Proverbs 22 verse 1 is still true. A good name is more desirable than great riches. Your child will carry this name into every room you won't always be there for. The classroom on the first day of school, when you've already driven away, the job interview years from now, the moment they introduce themselves to someone they love for the first time. You won't be standing there for most of it, but the name will be. Choose one that speaks life, not the one that happened to sound good in a hospital room at 2 in the morning, exhausted, running on adrenaline and love and very little sleep. If even one of these six spoke to you today, comment, Lord, let my child's name carry your purpose, not as a formality, but as an actual prayer typed out and meant. And if you know someone choosing a name right now, someone scrolling through lists at midnight the same way that young mother once did, send this to them today. It might be the difference between a quick decision made from exhaustion and a prayerful one made from something deeper. The first gift you ever give your child isn't the nursery or the blanket or anything wrapped in paper. It's the sound they will hear every single day, spoken over them for the rest of their life.